You either clicked on this video because you're my English teacher, or you got too far into the depths of YouTube and found my YouTube channel. Either way, I'm sorry. Hopefully you already know the premise of this video, but if you can't read English, let me tell you. This is going to be about things that make music good. No, not good, that make music interesting. This is not about what makes music good. If I wanted to explain how to make good music, I'd go back to being the teacher assistant for AP Music Theory. So, what makes music interesting? First of all, let's define interesting. It means arousing curiosity or interest. And I hate it when they use the word in the definition. I think Google would be smarter. It also means to hold or catch attention. Basically, when the music starts playing, is the listener even acknowledging that this is music? Or is it like the elevator music that's playing right now? Or do they start asking questions? Who wrote this? What instrument is that? Did they really just do what I think they just did? So, without further ado, here's my masterclass on how to make music interesting. That catch your ear? Good. That falls in line with other interesting music, such as Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, where he literally has cannons going off. In what world would cannons going off not pique your interest? Or okay, I'm gonna have to look straight at this. Akiho. Andy Akiho's Ping Pong Concerto, where he has two table tennis players having a game, in time of course, while a Philharmonic Orchestra plays over them. That's pretty cool. If that doesn't interest you, I don't know what will. So, that's the first step. Do something absolutely insane that no one else will ever be able to copy because it's just that outlandish. What's that? The fire marshal said you can't have cannons going off in the concert hall? Or your producer said that ping pong won't sell to the masses. Well, I've got a solution for you. Let me introduce you to something called extended techniques. And chances are that you probably already know some of them. But, here, I'll give you some examples. Basically, extended techniques are when you use an instrument in a way that wasn't intended. The first guitar wasn't made to be bowed like a cello, it was meant to be plucked, or strummed. The piano was not made with the intention of plucking the strings instead of hitting the keys. Trumpet mouthpieces were not meant to go on bassoons, and so forth. However, when we use extended techniques, it makes the listener lean in and become interested because, ooh, that's new and unconventional, I've never seen anything like that before. So, that's a way to make music interesting. Use some extended techniques. Another way to make music interesting is through this thing we like to call tension and release. In other words, chaos and order. Music makes you want to shiver in anticipation.
I see you shiver with anticipation.
There are several ways to do this, such as repeating the same phrase over and over, like Beyonce in Love on Top. Increasing or decreasing in volume.
And she doesn't give a damn about me, 'cause I'm just a teenage dirtbag baby.
Slowly moving from one pitch to another. Going to dissonant to consonant chords. So, a bit of music theory. We've got these things called pitches. When you stack two pitches on top of each other or play one after the other, it's called an interval. When you take three or more pitches and play them at the same time, it's called a chord. And depending on what type of intervals you put in the chord, you get different chords. For example, a major third with a minor third on top of it is your standard major triad. If you switch them and have the major third on top of the minor third, it becomes a minor triad. And then if you put two major thirds together, it's an augmented triad. Two minor thirds is a diminished triad. Okay, now stay with me here because I'm about to explain something and it's not going to seem important at first. Let's pick a scale, and it's going to be C major, which is all of the white keys and starting at C. Now, if we go ahead and play triads on the white keys instead of just the one note, we'll get this. Sounds nice. It goes major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, and then diminished. Oh god, it's so dissonant. But then we go back to the major chord and everything is better again. it's dissonance to consonance, tension to release. You still with me? So here's the part where the whole tangent starts to actually make sense. If we Google major chord progression chart, you'll get something that looks like this. More or less like this. So all these numbers are Roman numerals. So it's from left to right, top to bottom, it's gonna go 3, 6, 4, 2, 5, 7, 1. The small ones are the minor chords, and then the big ones are the major chords. So major, minor. And then the little thing right here means that it's a diminished chord. And this chart basically tells us what a chord naturally moves to. For example, the 3 chord can go to the 6, or it can technically go to the 4. Oh, I forgot my hair's weird. And that's not to say that it's absolutely impossible to make your 3 chord go to, I don't know, like the 5 or something. But if you're taking AP Music Theory, then your teacher is probably going to yell at you. So this chart is a useful building block, but rules are made to be broken. So now that we get that, here's the part where I tell you how to make it interesting. First, have you ever seen 4 Chords by Axis of Awesome?
Recognize this?
Yeah, that's Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
And the cast of Glee? Yeah, there's a few more songs with the same chords. Check it out. My life is brilliant, my love is pure. I saw an angel, of that I'm sure. People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. Can you practice what you preach? Won't you turn the other cheek? Forever young, I wanna be forever young.
Alright, now that we understand chord structure and the theory of progressions, we get what they're saying. So many songs we hear nowadays are made up of the same 4 chords. 1, 5, 6, 4. Which I'm pretty sure is like a simplified version of a common ragtime progression, but we're not gonna get into that. Anyways, this is the point. When so many songs today are based off of the same chord progression, you can only get so much variation. It's kind of like if you gave like the same like pack of popsicle sticks and like a foot of tape to like 4 different groups and told them like you had to like construct something that had to hold up like a textbook or whatever. Like you would only get so many variations of the design that works. Similarly, if the structure is simple and reused over and over, you basically get the same song over and over. And how interesting can a song be if you technically already heard it? And of course you're thinking, oh, but the lyrics are all about different stuff. That makes it interesting. Okay, we're talking about music here, not lyrics. Lyrics are poetry in a completely different art form. So, how does pop music survive? I'd say it's because it's more of a performance all around. While a professional violinist isn't required to be a public face, meaning that the audience might like go and buy their album, they both go home and both parties let the other go about their life. Pop stars aren't given that luxury. They have Twitters and Instagrams to keep updated and fans to please and a million other things to do other than make music. Part of selling their music is becoming a person that people want to buy music from. Like, if you're a bland person, people aren't as likely to buy your music than if you are, I don't know, like Lady Gaga or something. Also, another reason, you know how when you find a new favorite song and you listen to it and then you just get so sick of it, but you still love it, and you want basically the same song but slightly different? That's why. So, how do we fix it? Well then, let's see. We want something different but easily sellable, but also something that isn't going to sacrifice our dignity as musicians. So let's go to our chord progression chart. So we're going to start with the 1 chord since we want to clearly establish our key. Then, how about we go to the 6? Ooh, yeah, because 1 can go to anything. So it gives us a lot of options to move on to later. Then, let's try moving to 4, because major to minor to major feels nice, but that's looking a lot like the thing we don't want. Here, listen to it. It goes, the one that we don't want is, oh, and then ours goes, Don't worry though, I've got an idea. Let me introduce you to this thing called a separate bass line. Usually the bass is supposed to fall somewhere within the chord, usually the root. The root is the bottom note of the chord, so if I play a 1 chord, C is the root. However, let's see what happens when I implement a separate bass line. That's what we got so far, but it can still use some work. Introduction number 2, the 7th chord. So, 7th chords are known for their jazziness. They're like, so let's try adding in a 5 chord, but with a 7th. So like, I don't know, it sounds predictable, like, of course it's gonna go there. So the separate bass line leads us straight into the 5, and the last thing we want to be is predictable, because that doesn't create tension. The last chord has to create tension because we started the first chord without tension, because it all repeats in a circle. So, how about we break the rules? Instead of moving forward on our chart, let's move backwards to the 3 chord, right? So, we were moving from here to here. Let's move from here to here. Break the rules, living on the edge. So let's do... unpredictable. Now, how about we make the 3 chord a 7th? Ooh. And give it a separate bass. Now, what note are you leading to? For me, it's the E. I asked my dad and he said the C. Which actually goes in to fill 2/3 of our 1 chord. I said the E and he said the C. And then all you need to add in to make the 1 chord complete is the G. There, we made an interesting chord progression. And your platinum album is saved. So I think the last thing to touch on is post-composition, because not a lot of people out there are composing, but there are a lot of more people that just like to perform. So the question is, how do you make something interesting if it's not interestingly composed? The question is, how do you make something interesting after it's been written? You could do what Mozart did. Or do a jazz arrangement.
So I cried, I beg and I pray, love me, say that you love me.
It really depends on how you feel the music. If you feel like taking, oh god, I'm gonna say his name wrong because I always say it wrong in my head. Eric Satie. No, I think it's like Eric Satie. I don't know, he's French. If you take his, it's another French word. Oh. Gymnopédie, I think that sounds really French. Gymnopédies at twice the suggested tempo, and you think that's interesting, then go for it. Sure, when we think about the main question, what makes music interesting, we think about what makes music interesting to the audience, not how to make music interesting for the performer. But more often than not, audiences are made up of performers. So how can music be interesting to the audience of performers when the music wasn't written to entertain them? So here's my take. There is no greater pain as a musician than playing a song that is too easy. It's boring, there's no fun in it, so what the composer then has to do is create a song that's going to keep the musician on their toes. You gotta make them sweat a little bit. Make the musician work hard to learn it and work hard to maintain perfection while performing it. When musicians are struggling to make sure everything is perfect in a song and their minds are racing at a mile a minute in order to achieve something that their conductor won't yell at them for, and then they then achieve it, that's fun. It's the race against the person next to you on the track, and it's striving to paint something better than your rival. Challenges are what musicians live on. When musicians can live on stage, the audience is going to feel alive too, and they're going to be interested.